My name is Greg Martin, and this is the Lifetime at Work podcast, where I interview founders, investors, and advisors about their careers and life's work. The goal is to better understand the working world, our impact, and what we each get out of working so hard. Let's get to it. My guest today is Neil Twa, the CEO of Voltage Holdings, a business that owns multiple e-commerce, software, consulting, and coaching businesses. In this conversation, we focus on covering something very unique, which is what I'd call the modern way to start a store, e-commerce. The path a lot of people take when they want to start a new business is they go and they invent a brand new product, they get it designed, have to figure out manufacturing, then they need a way to sell it, whether it be in store or online and distribute it. But the most tried and true, or in other words, easier method is to sell products that already exist. And you can even modify them a little bit, but the idea is the same. It's this idea that our guest today is an expert and he tells us all about. How do you go today in the world and adapt and change a little product and sell it online and make that a business? Here, enjoy my conversation with Neil Twa. Oh, welcome to the Lifetime at Work podcast.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me on here.
Well, do you mind just starting with your quick background and where you're from? How did you start your career? Where you're now? We'll dive into it from there, but I just want to give the primer.
Yeah, well, I'll try to make sure that's not boring and something my mom wouldn't be interested in listening to. Long story short, got into the internet when it was dial-up and then went to college because I couldn't be a fighter pilot. I couldn't fit in the cockpit, so I got rejected from the Air Force. And that's all I really wanted to do was become a fighter pilot. So I hadn't gone and done the educational track thing to go to college, and so I backpedaled and filled out all the forms and whatever, and turned out I got some music scholarships and some work study that paid for my first few years of college. So I went to college. And I went from Oregon out to Iowa, which was a huge shock for me because that's where the college was. And I went to a totally new environment, totally different culture, and a totally new adventure. The internet came online about 3 years later, which sort of saved me because I failed out of college twice, didn't want to be there anyways. And the internet came and it's like, hey, there's something new here. There's something exciting. And I was like, wow, I want to know about that. But academia had no way to do it. In fact, we were setting up the computer labs and no one else knew what the heck they were doing. So I trained myself on the systems and product and then into the business. And that led me into coding, which I wasn't trained on, but I self-trained enough to get a contractor job at a little company in Overland Park, Kansas. And that actually led me to an intranet posting for a job in a new division called Sprint PCS when the first mobile phones were launching. And I applied and got into that, and I was my team was handling all their intranet knowledge and information to support the customer reps as the new phones were going to market. So I worked closely with business and technology to build up a knowledge base of 50,000 web pages at that point to control that hyper growth. Well, we turned that into a digital knowledge management, a latent semantic search engine. Worked on teams that did that until there was about 80,000 people inside the company. So it grew extremely fast in 5 years. It's by all accounts, it was a startup, if you will. Had good work in there led me to an opportunity to jump to IBM, and they hired me out of Sprint, and I went to work for IBM. I still didn't have a degree, but I had some very intrinsic knowledge and information and systems and technologies and stuff around the knowledge management world, which led me into telecom and high mobile and all these other places, and got to sit into some of the largest board seats of the companies and got to go hang out in New York and all this kind of cool stuff. And then around 2005, my uncle died, who was my mentor. He was my rich dad, if you will. Really taught me about abundance and mindset and really encouraged me to do things and get out on my own. And I was still having a hard time with that. But when he died, it really was a catalyst to my willingness to change. And about 2 years later, I left IBM. We had an opportunity to part ways, and I took it. And so I fired the man and left in 2007. Started a series of companies. That's now 18 years ago. So anything I talked about today is going to be like 18 years to an overnight success. And all the pivots and challenges that went along with that to get where I am now.
Awesome. Okay. I was just listening to another podcast and they were talking about how like AI today is sort of what the internet was back in the day. And it was just a matter of like, hey, you just got to get into it. It sounded like that was your approach, was just like, hey, I'm hearing about this internet thing, but it's almost like no one has any training. Like there wasn't training for that. You just had to get into it.
There wasn't any training. There was nothing. It was literally on the job, book training yourself, asking questions and just figuring it out because nobody knew what the heck they were doing.
Okay. How did you think about that from like a career perspective, or did you care? Was it more just, hey, I want to get experience?
Well, Yeah, no, I knew I wasn't. I mean, I didn't want, okay, so I didn't want to go to
Yeah.
college. And then I really didn't want to get in the corporate world, but I did those things because they were necessary at that point to get the knowledge, education, and access to the people and systems and stuff that were available because I was just pivoting through changes in our culture and in the world to just navigate my way through to ultimately what I knew I wanted to do, which was be my own business owner. I just wasn't sure how to get there or what path was ultimately going to lead me to my success. I just kept changing
Yeah.
directions. And so I just knew that eventually I was going to do my own thing, and so I just kept pushing forward with that. Really, at the end of the day, it's all it came down to.
Gotcha. Okay. What? Okay. So then you switched. You decided that hey, you wanted to be for yourself, and you wanted to take what you knew and turn it into your own business. What'd you do? How'd you approach that
Yeah.
process?
Yeah, everybody listening to this, or those who might be interested in wondering at a W two or job, or another situation with how do I get something else going? When do I jump? Is it the right time to start a business? Yada yada yada. It's
Yeah.
never. I mean, I know the memes make fun of this, but it literally is never the right time. I didn't have a grandiose plan. I wasn't joining a franchise. It was just an opportunity that came, and I had to make a decision, a fork in the road. My fork in the road was I don't want that life. I don't want to be traveling away from my family. I don't want to be stuck in a corporate gig. I don't want any of that. I only did it as a means to an end. And so when the opportunity came, I just jumped. It was the same year we got married, right? That was a difficult thing. So first year marriage in March, new business in June. Found out we were pregnant by October with our
Good
first
year.
daughter. And then my wife, who was an RN BSN, had to leave her job because of high risk stuff with the pregnancy by the end of the year. So we went from two high income earners to
Yeah.
no income. A new business, a new house, a new kid, new wife, new everything. So there's never like a perfect time to do any of this. But, again, I had in the process of meeting this lady and eventually getting married to her, she understood that my goal was always to be on my own, to be and do my own business. And so she knew that about me as a friend that turned into a love that turned into a marriage. And so she never, stopped me or discouraged me or said, go get a job or whatever. She was just like, hey, we're in this, let's keep going. So we ended up selling the house and giving ourselves more time. I knew we needed more time. We needed the extra, longevity of the income. And so we just kept going. And in that process, I could sell my time. So I went back to being a consultant. I just did it on my own time. So what I discovered though was I was just trading time for money
Yeah.
again, just in a nicer box, right? And I still hadn't learned what business actually meant. So when I hired a guy and got to work for him out of Tulsa, technically he hired me, which was nice. But I got to mentor with him, and he was a consummate sales professional, small business owner, ran a tech company, and was training me up in the sales and business side, the stuff I didn't actually know. And as I learned that, one of the things he kept reminding me of was sales fixes everything. You have to learn to sell something if you're going to be on your own. You can't wait for somebody else. There's not some other economic engine. It doesn't just fall on your doorstep. You have to learn to sell something. And if you actually want to turn it into a business, you can't keep selling yourself. So he really helped me understand what it took to sell a business. And as I changed that, eventually by 2010, 3 4 years later, I had 10 consultants working for me. So now I became more of a high management staffing
Right.
consulting company. So instead of me traveling and stuff, they
And
were
what were
traveling.
you?
So I became more of the managerial
What were
marketing
you?
guy.
What was your
Go ahead, sorry.
expertise? Like, what were you? What was the product, the service you were
We
selling?
were still in the same high tech business SOP world of semantic search engines, knowledge management gathering, building latent semantic engines, and organizing the knowledge and content within an organization structure and helping to deliver it. One of the ways we did that was both public and private sector. We helped deliver part of the 2010 census. As a part of that, we worked on telco based stuff and stuff in the energy grid as
Gotcha.
well on those projects. So it was all about consolidation of knowledge and systems to allow just in time access to that
Gotcha.
information.
Okay.
Yeah, big
So we left
systems.
off. That is not what you do. The business you do
Mhm.
today, though. Where did?
It is not. No, we're still pivoting, right? No, we are still pivoting because life and business is nothing but a series of solving problems and pivoting in business. If you think you're doing something or you start doing something and you believe that's the only thing you're going to do in business for the next 10 years, I'm here to tell you that no one does it that way, right? You have to realize you have to pivot. You have to be someone who is accustomed to change. You have to be someone who sees change as an opportunity to challenge yourself, to get around those problems and keep solving them, because that's really what business ownership is at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Learning new things, and who do you trust and where do you go and how do you navigate business is a huge component. And as I was learning how to navigate a staffing company, I started to do more marketing and business development, because that's where my focus should have been and always was trying to be, which was, selling up something in the marketplace as I was
Yeah.
told to do, and learning how to do that better. And I discovered affiliate marketing because I got into online marketing and I got into product based online marketing and selling other people's products, doing lead gen. And turns out I was really good at it. I had an aptitude for the numbers and the buying and the media and the
So just for
copywriting.
affiliate marketing, just so everyone sort of has a better sense for it,
Yeah.
how does that work? What is that?
In essence, I arbitraged data and media buying to someone else's product that a consumer would buy, and I would receive a commission
Right.
on that. So for every sale they made that came through my tracking, my channel, my marketing efforts, I got a commission. If it was a $10 product, I'd get a $3
Yep.
commission for every sale. So it helped them out, and I was good at the marketing and engine. And suddenly, I'm doing that to two, three, four, 500, $1,000 a day in profit, and I'm doing it on a remote connection, and I'm spending 2 to 4 hours a day doing it. So there wasn't really any need for the management consulting side
Right.
anymore. I was making more money with less hassle, less stress, less job related stuff, less billing hours, less staffing hours, less factoring invoices and stuff. And I was making a lot more money just working on an internet connection in a remote location of Oklahoma on a dial-up almost style internet, because it wasn't even fast enough where we
Yeah.
lived to do the internet very fast. And that really led me into the marketing world. Eventually discovered that, to be a business owner, you own both ends. You own the full product. You own the whole thing. So I moved out of affiliate marketing and into the physical product world, which I'm at now, because I wanted to own the whole product side. I needed to own the whole business structure, moving from the Kiyosaki quadrants, if some of you are familiar with that concept of self-employed, employed, and then there's business owner and business investor. I was in that process of going through that. I wouldn't know what to call it until much later on. But then I understood that's where I was headed, was the business person is not an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur for most of that, stepping
Yeah.
stones. I became a business owner when I locked into the thing I knew I was going to keep doing no matter what. And then hedgehog into that, like Jim Collins says in Good to Great, and find multiple streams of revenue to keep me going inside that one vertical, as opposed to pivoting through all these other ones. That actually turned me into a real
Yeah.
business owner, was when I owned the physical products on all
Gotcha.
sides of it.
Okay. I have more questions on that, but I wanted to take a quick aside and just almost have you answer a question around e-commerce. So Amazon has come
Sure.
onto the scene. We've got all of a sudden, like we've got, I don't know, we tend to see, I mean, Hudson, I'm a Canadian, so Hudson's Bay is just gone, declared bankruptcy. We have less and less people buying stuff in person. It's all coming online.
In
Like, how
person.
does that work though?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's so many products. Like
Mm,
if we just take a step back on like what we've created out there and what everyone's doing to now deliver
yeah.
products to people from e-commerce versus what used to be the little store on the
Yeah.
corner. Like, what's happened here?
Well, man, we're not that different in age, and some of us on here aren't either. We remember the yellow pages were kind of the go-to standard
Yeah.
for businesses, right? And then we go back, you go forward in time a little bit, and it was kind of like when the internet became legitimate. Then businesses who were legitimate and needed a brochure website. If you didn't have a brochure website, you weren't legitimate. Well, fast forward now, if you're an e-commerce company that does not have the Amazon sales channel, your customer base doesn't necessarily think you're legitimate. So you've got to at least have that component in your direct to consumer marketing channel if you're going to sell physical products, right? So we've gotten to a stability, what we call the halo effect, which is multi-channel or omni-channel is a requirement of an e-commerce company for a brand person to see you as a real brand. If you see a Facebook ad and you're like, oh, I wonder if this is legit, you go to Amazon and you look it up and you're like, oh yeah, I actually found them. They're a legit
Yeah.
company. This is kind of the psychology of online. And what's helped move that are systems of automation. All right. Amazon spending like 15, $20 billion in infrastructure. They bought a logistics company that they rebranded, which is now the sixth largest logistics company in the world, moving planes, trains, and automobiles like insane every day to the customers. You probably get it. My wife gets it 3 or 4 times a week, and many people on here get packages
Yeah.
from Amazon. But what you don't recognize is that system allowed small people, individuals, medium-sized businesses, even big businesses, to leverage that to bring products last mile to the customer, to your door when you order them. And about 62% of all of Amazon products are delivered by third-party people like us, right? So we provide the products, the platform provides the mechanism and engine, and with AI systems and growth since I've got on in 2012 when I started selling physical products, It took us about 3 years to hit our first seven-figure brand, which is cool, but it took us about a year to do it later on because the systems, the virility, the engine of the internet, social media, and other things that have really pumped hard in the last 10 plus years have created demand creation where Amazon has become now a demand capture platform. TikTok, social media, and all that stuff are demand creation. And when you combine the power of that, you get insane numbers now. It took QVC like 20 years to hit their first $1 million hour. In fact, I know the lady that did it. But it took TikTok about 2 years launching their live platform for the first $1 million hour on TikTok last year, July 2024. So the systems of this are moving extremely fast. Creates huge upside and opportunity, but challenges if you don't know how to navigate that right, because there's a whole different way of navigating it now than we did 10 years ago.
Okay. So do you have any sense for, like, there are other platforms besides Amazon, but if you're
Correct.
whatever, if you're selling e-commerce and you're just you're a brand and you've decided that that's a big channel, are there many brands out there where they're primarily selling through their own website, etc., and then a little bit
Oh,
Amazon,
yeah.
or is it, how does that?
Well, most people don't know that Amazon is now 49% of the US e-commerce market share. So the other 51% are other people. So it's still the
Yeah.
majority, but only barely. And Amazon's revenues have just surpassed Walmart's, right? So now it is the economic engine of moving products. Walmart's been trying to catch it, but they just got surpassed. So in terms of the engine, yes, there is a whole, group of people, half of the online world that doesn't sell on Amazon, right? Or doesn't sell to the degree that they sell in the direct to consumer world through their website, through a direct medium, through retail, through Shopify, through other mechanisms of direct to consumer channels. What you'll find though is that those larger businesses, and I've worked with a couple 30, $50 million in sales, they try to manage Amazon and have a huge trouble with it. The one company we worked with, they came to us after they'd spent who knows how much money, they wouldn't tell us, and they made a total of $16,000 in 1 year on Amazon, because the psychology of the buyer on a demand capture platform like that is very different than a direct to consumer psychology in media and ads and television and other things. And they just didn't know how to capture it. And about 8 months later, we had them to 100,000 a month on Amazon. It's just a different kind of platform to capture and understand. But here's the thing: if you're listening to this and you happen to have a brand that is not on Amazon, understand if you're spending between 50 to 100,000 a month in paid traffic ads, which the larger brands are easily going to be doing, you're losing up to 20 to sometimes 30% of the clicks and sales you would have got on your channel are going to Amazon. In other words, they're clicking off your ads and buying it on Amazon. We call it found money. So for these much larger brands to get an established presence on Amazon is an opportunity to gain found money, up to 30% of the money you're losing that's going to go to another platform seller. Here's the thing that happened the other day. We had a guy in one of these groups I was watching, and he came on and he's like, my inventory is disappearing. I can't figure out what's happening. They're selling the crap out of on Amazon. I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm freaking out because I think this is a bad thing. 2 weeks of post-mortem to find out it wasn't a coupon, it wasn't a negative deal, it wasn't some sort of weird thing. What he had happened to him was someone on TikTok, who was his competitor, had a video go viral. And when they couldn't find the product on Amazon, they bought his instead. So when that viral video went out, he sold out of his product on Amazon because his competitor wasn't outranking him. So there is this halo effect we have to be cognizant of that occurs in these online platforms now.
Okay. So then the big question, I think you said, was it 60 some odd that are sold not by Amazon itself, they're sold by sort of third parties?
62% of third party, yeah.
Where's all that coming from? Who's, and I think that's where you come in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming from, individuals, small businesses, and, third-party sellers who put their products on the platform, right? It could be wholesale arbitrageurs, it could be third-party sellers or private label sellers like us, meaning that we customize the products, we have trademarks and intellectual property. We use the Fulfilled by Amazon system, or FBA, to let it deliver our products through their system last mile when you order it on Amazon. And that creates a whole lot of automation that we don't have to mess with, including warehousing and a lot of customer support and returns and the whole engine behind the engine, if you will. We don't have to deal with that. Amazon does, which is cool. And once I get my products into Amazon, I can actually take it to TikTok, my website, Shopify, and other locations, and do what's called multi-channel fulfillment. So I can have Amazon deliver those products to those customers too. So I sort of have one warehousing and distribution, kind of a spoke and hub kind of thing. That means that I can sell on TikTok and other places and let Amazon deliver that to the customer too. So really, I'm just focused on one major thing that we've come to learn with the systems and having all the AI background that I did and watching it come forward now into what it's become. I've stayed very on the forefront of incorporating that into our business to create automation and growth and opportunity and discovering really the customer needs. What the heck does, do they want to sell on the platform, and what does the customer actually want to buy from us? It's become more data brokering. In fact, we say data brokering. In fact, we say we sell products to an AI engine, and the AI engine sells delivers the product to the customer. So really, at the end of the day, we've gotten very good at brokering the data of the product, and then we create the product to fulfill the contractual obligation of the monetary exchange that occurs. And we create a great product, so we get great reviews. And once we've done that, sales fixes everything, right? So we focus predominantly on the data side.
Gotcha. Okay. So you would say now
Yeah.
is what you're good at, because you're primarily marketing and trying to decide which products to sell and how to sell them. Is that?
What product data to broker to the
Yeah.
engine that is already in demand. So we innovate, we don't invent. I've been an inventor, I've been on patents, I went that route. It's a long haul, it's very expensive. It's a dream based
Yeah.
idea that you need to, create something or build something and they will come. It's the Shark Tank thing. It's the idea that only those with the most unique idea can make millions of dollars. And that's simply not true. It's a logical fallacy in the argument of e commerce. What is true is 99% of the people innovate products, right? That's why the crock pot became the Instapot, which sells $1 billion in Instapot, has now become the air fryer. Those are just innovations of grandma's original
Yeah.
crock pot. Okay, so if we innovate, we go to the market and we say, what's the market demand? We're not smart enough to tell the market what it wants. We're smart enough to have the market tell us what it wants, and then we go give it to the market and find out if they're willing to buy it from us. So we take the data, not the product. We identify what data sets are the most in demand in a specific location of Amazon's warehouse. It's a big river of traffic,
Yep.
right? And in it is this data warehouse that they store data in, and they have this large language model running called Cosmo. And inside of that is simply looking to say, what's the customer need and intent of this product? And I've identified 103,002 locations that make up all of Amazon's revenue. And with that, I know exactly what products are in demand the most on the platform. And I simply go through that list and just keep offering
All
that
right.
product to the market and say, do you want my version at this price point? And with 35 brands, I think we figured it out.
What was your very first product that you sold online?
Yeah, so I discovered that one. It ended up being what we call our as seen on TV strategy, which eventually led me to a relationship with Kevin Harrington, who was the original Shark Tank. He wrote the forward for my book. He's been a good friend of mine since 2016. And that literally was up. I was feeding my third daughter. I have four daughters. And I was feeding the third one night. Mom was super tired, and so I'm a night owl, so I got up early. I'm watching infomercials while holding the bottle and clicking through, and up pops this product called Seat Pets. And it was this pet-based looking doll thing, big head, fluffy. You put it in the car, you strap the seatbelt through it, you put your crowns, and the kids can snuggle
Yeah.
on it so their heads don't fall over and get the car seat crick, right? And I'm like, that's a pretty cool product. And they did this whole infomercial. And I watched the whole thing, and I almost bought it as a consumer. And I'm like, no, dummy, don't buy the product. Let's see if we can make one. Like, what are you doing? Like, I had this conditional thinking was still kind of locked into my brain. And I was like, no, break out of that. And I thought, okay, what if I could sell one? So I called my partner the next day. I said, dude, I saw this product. You got to check it out. Well, we found out their Amazon presence wasn't very
Okay.
good at all. And I thought, I think we can beat them. So we went out and we put a Hail Mary pass, which I don't recommend today. And we took 2,000 units. There's a different process we follow today, but we had a totally different risk to reward ratio mind at that time. And so we're like,
Let's
let's
do
get
it.
2,000 units. And we called it Belt Buddies. All right. And we changed the product a bit. We made the more anime character
Okay.
face. It was a little trending at that time. A little bit better stitching. We made a little bit better quality material. We made the pockets a little bigger so they could hold larger crowns. We just did 3 or 4 innovations to the product. Not terrible change, huge changes, right? And we launched it into the market organically. We sold all of those 2,000 units in 8 weeks organically. Once we saw that blow off the shelves, it was another 2,000 units and another 2,000 units, and it just took off like
And
crazy.
was it a function of like, were you doing advertising for it? You mentioned it was mostly organic. So it was just a function of like someone else is looking for this product. It's the same sort of thing in the story you told before.
It's why we call it the as seen on TV
Yeah.
strategy. It was already in demand. Someone was already paying for the market. There was already a stream of traffic running through Amazon
Looking
for
for it.
people looking for that
Yeah.
product 24/7. And we simply put our product in front of them. We put our lemonade stand out on the road and we said, hey, what about ours? It looks different than these guys. and we actually charged like $5 and eventually $7 more per unit for our product, which gave us the opportunity to start marketing it on the platform
Right.
profitably.
Okay. And so then from there, I guess, how did you build both a portfolio and then I guess a business off of this?
Well, when we unlocked that realization, it was twofold. It was one, how much traffic was being influenced on the Amazon platform from other locations when we started to realize it was more demand capture than demand creation. And this was 10 years ago, and this has really changed a lot now, especially with social media. It's like gas on
Yeah.
fire now, right? And we realized there was an organic ranking system happening inside of Amazon that could be impacted by traffic. And so when we saw that ability, we made a connection that Amazon's ranking engine was allowing organic ranking and then not a manipulation, but a positive effect of traffic, both internally with Amazon's pay per click marketing and externally. And when we unlocked that realization, we started to develop a launch strategy, over 10, 20, 30 days, 60 days. We wanted to see how the engine played. Now, remember, I built latent semantic search engines back in the day, right? And I had built the mechanisms by which these learning engines had occur. And I had worked at the Armonk lab and at the Watson supercomputer with a group of guys for a while up there at IBM. And so I knew that this engine had a way to give it what it wanted when it wanted it so that it would respond to me positively. Even if I didn't have the same amount of reviews, my price point wasn't the same, whatever, as long as I knew where to put it and then how to get the engine to value my data above the other data set, then I would get that one to show higher. It's the same way we were working to get the data of the engines to produce documents faster so customer support reps could answer questions quicker. And with that, I was like, well, the engine must be doing the same thing. So I set off to test it. And I spent about 18 months testing the engine just to determine what data points it was looking for and when it was looking to receive it, because I knew that's how they programmed it. I just didn't know what differences they had programmed. Now, there were white papers about this back in the day, and they have since scrubbed them all off the internet. So with those white papers, I started to understand what they were doing because of how they were engineering it. And I simply gave the engine what it wanted when it wanted it. And after that, literally, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. We could not launch brands fast enough. We couldn't launch partner brands fast enough, right? We were just putting money and product in hand over fist. And the engine was just ranking and ranking and ranking those products
You just
faster
end
and
up with
faster. It was
you
crazy
just end
to
up with a
watch.
big list of products that you know are going to be good. And it's like, hey, how can I get this? How can I get
More
that?
than I could do in a
Right?
lifetime.
Yeah. All right.
More than I can do
Okay.
in a lifetime, dude. There's just so many opportunities. It answered the question, what the heck do I sell? Which actually I had a client later on, and we had so many people asking us, what are you doing? What are you doing? We had, people in the seller communities and other stuff like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And pretty soon we were teaching way more people than we were doing it ourselves. And so we had to like back up off of that. We're like, oh my gosh. But it ended up being one of those things where we realized that this economic engine had unlimited upside potential. It literally has so much data and opportunity in it that most people don't recognize what the heck to
Yeah.
sell. And that was one of the things we set out to figure out in a process of our own, through our own business, and then translated it back into software and technologies that others in our community could follow
Right.
as well. And the reason we ended up doing that is because I had employees and I didn't want employees anymore. And what I wanted was people to become successful who also wanted to work with us. So I started training more and more people one on one to get them into successful positions. And then as we wanted to launch products, I said, hey, we're going to launch this product. Would you want to partner with
Right.
us? Or hey, this is a great product set. Maybe you should try it out. Or hey, let's go buy this company because I know that they're not doing these things right and we can do these things right. And that's kind of what has become Voltage now, an incubator of products helping aspiring entrepreneurs become real operators, because then I turn them into business partners and operators and brand operators and even acquisition partners. And I'm basically partnering with other execs who own companies and run the businesses we help train them and built them on. And then we do more business together. And that's like 10 times more powerful than any employee could be. So I have no employees
Gotcha.
now.
Okay. And so, yeah, describe to me
Yeah,
a little bit more then about the business. And you acquire them as well, or are you also acquiring
we
brands
do.
and involved? How,
We are. Yeah,
so
we're
what's your
acquiring brands between 5 to 15 million in
okay?
revenues.
And what makes a good something you would like to buy, or like, what makes a good target?
Well, certain factors of expectation now I have that are sort of different than the marketplace, because I know that, and we teach operators and brought them up, and I have like multiple operators running multiple seven-figure companies, one operator running three multi-seven-figure companies. Because of the systems of automation we created, because of my entire desire to build in that automation along with Amazon's automation, and then moving it into other channels to make that as automated as possible. We then look to acquire companies that have similar frameworks in place or that we can sort of tweak up a little bit what they're doing in order to create more of that automation that they simply aren't doing in their business. It's an opportunity for
Yeah.
us, right? If they're selling X amount, usually it has to be minimum 1.5 million in EBITDA or seller discretionary earnings, SDE. That's a great target. They have to have at least 5 years in business as part of the criteria. They have to have multiple product lines, if you will, across multiple locations, so not just a single channel. If it is a single channel, they've done really well in the last trailing 12 months. And we see that if we opened additional channels in the next 12 months after acquiring them, then we could see some good or even exponential growth. And then we see that as a target acquisition. But preferred, they have multiple locations. They don't have large warehouses, if at all possible. They're usually all US based. And one of the things that we built into this cake is I actually partnered with a company and two gentlemen who own Patriot Growth Capital. And with Patriot Growth, what they do is they support the veteran community. They helped 16,000 veterans last year, and actual, military veterans from, in different locations of opportunity, either exiting or just exited or some component of post-military. And the goal there is to help them transition, to stop the 20 a day that are killing themselves and give them opportunity and hope and a purpose by bringing them in as operators. And so what we're doing as we acquire these companies is we're hiring veterans into the businesses and we're training them over 4 and 5 years to get them their 10,000 hours of experience so they have an opportunity to acquire that business away from us later on after 5 years. And when we do it, there's a capital tax free event that can occur when we do it after 5 years. And that becomes a blessing to them and their families. Or if they become operators, they could become levels of operations within the business. But one thing is for sure, it's all veteran focused and growth focused as we operate these companies and acquire them. So it's really a mission that we're on there, which gives us that opportunity.
And you've written a book too. Maybe describe
I
describe
did. I wrote a
describe
book.
that and what that's all about and why you wrote it.
Well, again, all of this experience and stuff, and having talked to a lot of people, I have a podcast called the High Voltage Business Builders Podcast. And on there since 2021, actually, I think that was like 4 years. When you said that,
Yeah.
it just dawned on me that's 4 years. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
holy cow, that's a long time. I had interviewed a number of individuals with varying strengths and the wealth without Wall Street side, real estate business, high profile people. Usually they have to be doing more than 5 million a year in sales already, in various areas of finance, economics, research, and stuff. And in that process of interviewing them, I realized there's so much wealth of knowledge these guys and ladies have. What if I compile it into a book and then kind of wrap my strategies around that, my case studies and resources and their resources? And that's what we did. It's a 15-chapter strategy guide on building almost automated income with FBA, and then how to leverage that into a complete e-commerce package that starts on FBA but goes out to the different platforms. And it creates a holistic e-commerce company. And so it's a strategy book, and each vertical is discussed in each chapter by each of the experts that I interviewed. And then, of course, case studies and resources to support each of those. And so that's what the book became. It became a strategy guide on how to build a 8-figure business. It's not a tactical guide, so if anybody reads it, understand it's not going to say go to your
Right.
browser and open this thing. That's what people forget is the strategy makes the business. It's the tactical that makes the
Yeah.
operations and the technology that enables it. If you don't have the right strategy, if you don't understand the business, if you don't understand how to read a P&L, if you don't know about the fundamentals of business and growth, that's what you're going to get a lot of in here about how to create and retain a going concern. Most people do not understand that the businesses actually fail in years 4 through 5. 92% of businesses do. The 8% that make it are going to make it for very specific reasons, and those are some of the reasons I call out in the book and also in my training and in my process. I've been at this for 18 years now. I figured out what it takes to make a business continue past years 4 and 5 repeatedly as we start up and grow these companies. And I share some of that knowledge and wisdom inside the book so other people can understand how to become part of the 8%.
I imagine some people think that what you're saying, hey, there were opportunities online and e-commerce and so many people have come into the space. There's so many people now selling and whatever. Are there areas in general e-commerce that have become sort of saturated, i.e., like they've just seen a lot of people really try to get into, and other really big white space areas otherwise that are available? Like I'm trying to think about if someone, even because it may take them a while to actually, like, say they decide, hey, I'm going to start selling something online. It may actually take them a while to get there, and there's this nervousness.
Well, what's a
I don't
while, I
know.
guess, in
I
the
like
question of
it
like
depends on who you are, right? It could be,
36
you know,
months it can create a successful business operation.
yeah,
Okay. So it's not 3 to 6 months. That's, first year is always about building knowledge, building learning, building experience, building good habits, and understanding how to create a business that has a successful and saleable asset, if you will, at the end of maybe 5 years. It's understanding that year two will be growth if you do a good job with year one's
Yeah.
activities. It's understanding that from growth in year two, you can reach scale in years 3 to 5 if you understand how to build the business correctly, how to deploy time, energy, attention, and money correctly, and understand who the team is that's actually going to help you. Because once the business gets going through year 2 and 3, it's not the business itself that is limited. It is actually always the individual. It is the individual that is limiting the business's opportunity for growth. It always becomes that point and is typically around years 4 through 5 or 5 to 10 million in revenues. At that point, the limitation of the business growth is always down to the individual operator. It has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
business. It has everything to do with their risk to reward ratio. Okay. Why can some people get to 10 million and it feels like a breeze, and why can others not break $1 million? When you find out it's never about the market, it's about the
Yeah.
person, it's about the operator. And it's always hard for people to hear that because it sounds very personal, but it's not. It is practical. Okay. It is in practical execution of the steps that others are willing to do, the risk that others are willing to take, that others are not willing to take, either through time or patience, or simply risk to reward ratio does not match up with their expectations of what it is required to get to the $10 million a year in sales and business and operations expenses that it is required to operate one of those companies. A $10 million a year business requires $1.5 million inventory minimum every 90 days. So many people's brains kind of explode. They're
That's
like, how's that
crazy.
possible?
Yeah.
It just seems ridiculous. But until you build up
Yeah.
to it, it sounds ridiculous. Until you get through your first 10,000 a month, and then your first 100,000 a month, and then you're getting close to breaking 1 million a month, do you not understand how the economies of scale work in a business model like e-commerce and how it works in a going
Yeah.
concern? But it is something you're trained into, something you grow into after 10,000 hours. It's not something you just
Right.
get to. So we need patience and time and realistic expectations. What I'm talking about now, you will not hear from the course online YouTube, hopium gurus who are trying to sell you a marketing and mass marketing adoption method to get you to buy their course and software. I don't do any of that. Okay, I build businesses. What I want people to really understand is the practical and pragmatic application of a business that is life changing. It became life changing
Yeah.
for me. Only it took me 18 years. I get people there in 4 to 5. The difference is, understanding all of that knowledge and wisdom and time and failures and going bankrupt and having huge success is all part of what's been brought to the table here to help people avoid those problems, avoid those pitfalls, and know how to walk the process better and faster and in real time, because we're doing it right
Yeah.
now in real time. And on my social media, I post the products and stuff that we're launching so people can see the kinds of things that we're doing, because it's one thing for somebody to tell you they did it in the past. It's another thing to watch somebody do it
Yeah.
right now. And right now, we're launching big brands and products, and everybody can follow along on my social media and check that out. And I want them to, because we're creating real business at the end of the day. I want people to see what's
Right.
possible. And for that, I homeschool my daughters with my wife. I live on 50 acres in the country. We homestead. We do the things we want to do. I make my own schedule. I have an amazing, contractual team around me who wants to be a part of this, who has been successful as a part of it. So they show up without me requiring them to show up, and they do what they need to do because they enjoy and loved and have had success in it. And you can't buy that. I can't buy that with an
Yeah.
employee. And that's what I want people to really understand here is you got to get from that employee mindset to the business mindset to becoming the business owner who becomes the business investor. You don't just jump to business investor. You'll make terrible mistakes. If people go out and like, I'm just going to buy a company, it's got 4 million a year, it's
Right.
costing off 500,000 a month, 500,000 a year in profit. I'll just buy that company. The arrogance and pride that makes you think you can run that company is going to cause you to
Right.
fail at it. You
Yeah.
will fail when you cannot make it run. When the first sets of business problems show up and you don't know how to manage it, it's going to fail. But that's why I have an operator running it. They're going to take care of it all. What happens if they get hit by a bus? What happens if they aren't actually operating it the
Yeah.
way you want? What if you don't know what the heck they're even doing or why they should be doing it or how they're doing it? That's a huge risk. Don't buy into that lie, right? Understand how to be trained in this business. Take the time and energy to do it. If it takes you 3 to 4 or 5 years, but then can live like nobody else has lived after, including you, why not take the time to do that and do it the right way? Okay. Fear and desperation are typically the things that kick into people buying that FOMO. And when they buy into that FOMO, they buy into the mass marketing. They hit the walls of saturation because they don't understand business is nothing but solving problems in a brand, and a brand lives forever, but the products will change. Okay, that's the why there's 20, Nike this, and there's 15 burger joints that, and there's 20 pizza joints, and they've lived on for however long because they understand they're selling the brand
Yeah.
and you don't, right? And that's something that you got to learn to understand about the business of this. That way, you create ongoing opportunity in your brand for 10, 20 years, even if the products change. Therefore, you're not in saturation, you're always in competition. Then you realize that upside is always there and it's an unlimited opportunity.
There, I think there's an interest that a lot of people have in creating something, like in creating a product that they want to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
There's a
Feels great.
tangibleness to it.
Yeah.
It's like something that we can do, we can show people, we can feel proud of.
Touch the product. I see the product. Somebody likes the product. I created value and someone is benefiting from it. That's a great high. I get that high off of all of these products all the
And
time and
so
I
and so I
love
want to
it.
ask you, like, so a lot of people's approach then to that is, I'm gonna go and I'm
Hmm.
gonna, I don't know, like develop, like you mentioned the R&D part. I'm going to make this brand new thing. I'm going to try to sort of change the world. The venture capital for what
Yeah, that's
will,
great. It's good
invest
philosophy.
in me, whatever, and do that. Where do you, like, have you thought about that model? Because that is like the, I don't know, the sexy model that people think or have in their heads or are trying really hard to
Oh
do.
yeah, I think about it because I went through it and I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and eventually went bankrupt trying to get it to market. Sorry, but that was my
Yeah.
experience. And I have like multiple people that I've talked to over the years who have ran into same problems. There was just a guy a few months ago that came to me in the process, great product, 2 years in, no money to make it go, knew nothing about how to sell the product or market it, knew everything about how to develop the product and did all the things right to develop it. And he was like, someone please save this or I've ran out of money. I can't make it go. It's going to be a really cool thing that no one ever hears
Yeah.
about. Okay, so what if instead you launched products that people know about, you get into revenue and
Yeah.
profits, and then when you have some of that going, you say, "Oh, I'm going to spend off some time and energy and I'm going to develop the unique version that no one's ever heard of, and I'll take a little profit and time off of here to do that, and I'll lend that one in the market once I've got this going over
Right.
here." Okay? Again, sales fixes everything. There's no shame in the game to develop a product that exists in the market, okay? I mean, if you had an Instapot in the market, would you be arguing with life right now? No.
Probably not. No.
You built not your grandma's crock pot. That's what the
Yeah.
freaking thing is. It's not your grandma's crock pot, but they sell $1 billion of it, right? It's just a crock pot with more features and functions that served a slightly different narrative and a slightly different audience type for a slightly different demographic. But it wasn't rocket science. Okay? There's like 20 other versions of the Instapot in the market now for competition. It wasn't that. But couldn't you go that route first and then invent
Right.
something once you know what you're doing? Couldn't you create multiple verticals at that point once you realize, there are so many products out there that you'll never be able to do them in a lifetime and that all products have a life cycle, so we don't marry our products, okay? You do not marry your product. It will serve a purpose. It has a purpose to drive revenue and profit to the bottom line. Its purpose is to solve someone else's problem. It is to fulfill someone else's emotional connection to that product. Sorry, I'm following my words. It's to serve a purpose in the life of somebody else. So create a great product so it serves that purpose with honor and integrity. But it is not what you do.
Yeah.
You do the business of serving the need of that customer for that product. The product fulfills the need for that customer. That is its purpose. So don't marry your products. When you get into realization of that, you marry the brand.
Yeah. Like, why do you think we do that? Like, or people do that? Or why did you do that? Like, why is that? Is it,
I tell you exactly. I'll tell you exactly why I did that. Hope.
you know,
Hope. Blood, sweat, tears, hope. Endless nights of thoughts of opportunity, changing my family's life and trajectory at that point, getting us out of the debt or the struggle that we were in, and the fear of possibly missing out that if I just didn't push that last mile, this wouldn't work. And I pushed that last mile. And then I ended up in the basement with my wife, pregnant and 8 months pregnant, answering to a judge in the courthouse in front of this dinky little pop-up table with 20 other poor souls who were in this dank room with lights blinking, looked like Joe versus a volcano. And we sat in front of this judge, and he judged our
yeah.
life. Yeah, not fun.
And
Do not recommend it. However, it's not the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is you never freaking try. I do not regret
yeah.
that at all. I don't regret it because I tried. I pushed to the wall. There are worse things that can happen, right? Up into dead, I'm still going to keep fighting. That's not even the worst thing in my life because I got a faith behind me. But the fact is, you can keep pushing to keep trying because you have that opportunity. No one can take that from you. It is your choice. It is your fear of the choice that you might fail or feel like a failure or that something will go right that stops you from ever going out there and failing in the first place. But I'm telling you, you will fail through some component. So here's where I would prefer you fail. I prefer you fail in a product launch and then go launch another
Right.
product and maybe see that one fail and so go launch another product and then watch that one actually work and then you'll figure it
Yeah.
out. And from there, you'll be like, great, I got the next product. It took me 300 campaigns, 299 to be exact, to get my first affiliate marketing campaign to actually work. Do you imagine if I'd given up at
Right.
275? I wouldn't be talking to you
Yeah.
today. It's the 300th campaign that actually kicked off. And in that first day, I made $50 in profit and I was hooked. It was like a dime bag. It was like a crack hit. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I can
Finally.
do this. Like, it
Yeah.
finally happened. And like, ignore the $60,000 in credit card debt. But I made that $50 in profit because I simply wasn't going to give up,
Yeah.
right? I knew the means to the end were greater than the path that I was walking, and I knew that it would occur if I just kept going. Call it blind faith, call it tenacity, call it perseverance, call it just pig-headed
Yeah.
stubbornness. Call it a purpose, right? Because what I learned through all of that was to invert purpose plus value equals profits. Before I had profits that would equal my purpose and value. And so many of you, I think, are caught in that mind that the profitable or guarantee of a profitable business is the purpose and the value you're seeking. Don't do that. That is my life experience. Please learn from that. Take your purpose and value first, and then you will find what profits you. Create the desire of that lifestyle by design you want. Fit in whatever model, real estate, business, e-commerce, whatever. Just keep in mind that real estate and businesses are the two reasons people become wealthy in this country, and those are your real
Yep.
opportunities. Okay, and if you start on one, you could always end up in another because I own all my real estate, right? But you need to realize that profits come second when you deliver a purpose and a value beyond yourself. So many of you may be listening to this think that I'm talking about what's in it for me. I'm not. I'm talking about what's in it for the person who buys my product. If they get a great product and I get a good review, we got a great relationship going. They're going to tell their friends and they're going to tell their family. That's great purpose. Why? Because the profits will come off of
Yeah.
that. And it's not just profit of financial, because so many people just they hear this, Greg, profit, and you might be thinking it too, profit of financial. I'm talking about 5 profits, right? 5 things that make up a profitable thing: faith, okay, family, friends, finances, and freedom. Freedom being the bottom half that supports the pillar of all of them. The freedom to choose, the freedom to do, the freedom to think, the freedom to act. I can post whatever the hell I want on social media. Now, I have consequences if someone wants to try to cancel me, but I still have that freedom. No employer can stop me or tell me what's going to happen. My clients won't follow me or fail me because they know and think exactly like I do, and they're going to like it and comment and be like, go get them. Because I've created that purpose and value all around me, right? And it's like a shield that walks ahead of my
Yeah.
brand. And then my brand walks ahead of all that. And everybody that's inside the shield gets to walk along with me, including my family. That
Yep.
makes sense?
It does. Um,
Yep.
I think it's a great time. Then we wanted to mention your book and an offer
Sure.
for anyone
I appreciate that.
interested. Why don't you mention the offer and then I'll tell you how the best. Maybe we'll figure out the best way to
Oh, yeah,
connect
no
people with
worries.
it.
Yeah, if you go to voltagedm.com, voltagedmdigitalmarketing.com /free book, there's a code that Greg has you guys can use. What was the code, Greg?
Lifetime. The code is lifetime.
And that will give 10 free copies of the book to anybody who's listening to this. It's a digital copy. I encourage you to take a look. Remember, it is a strategy and a business guide to run the operations and strategy of the business. It is not a tactical guide. It isn't going to tell you how to open an account or whatever. It is going to provide the strategy required to make a successful going concern. That's the most important thing you need to learn first.
All right. And the best way if people want to keep following you, learn more of what you're talking about, we only scratch the
Sure.
surface. Besides the book, what's the best way to do that?
Mhm. My last name is Twa, TWA. So if you just Google me or Brave search or whatever, or go on social media, you'll find Voltage and Twa. I'm out there everywhere. Pick whichever one you like. Email me directly. You can reach my text messages on the website. I've got free training and resources on there that you guys can check out at voltagedm.com. or whatever channel makes sense to you. I don't have a sales team. There is a application process for anybody that wants to work with Voltage. I choose the operators who work with us for a number of reasons to validate that they are capable, willing, and effort wise to go through that time, energy, attention, and money to really build a going and serious concern. It is not a course. It is a one-on-one mentoring for 12 months, just to be very clear, and everybody who applies does not mean guaranteed access.
Awesome. Okay, well, Neil, thanks for all the insights and being a guest today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on, Greg. You've been a wonderful host. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're a fan of the podcast, please rate or like it on Spotify or Apple. That always helps in getting the podcast out to more people. You can also follow us in the podcast on LinkedIn and share, or just even like any of the content that is coming out there or from my page. That also always helps promote it. I'll have lots more great episodes coming for you in the future. And until then, it's good to stand out.